Thank you so much for joining us on Passion today. I'm your host, Britt Ivy, and today we have with us Sal Esquivel, State Representative, District 6, and Sal is so humble that he said, just call me Sal. So Sal, thank you so much for being on Passion today.
Well, thanks for having me today.
All right. Is that kind of like Cher? You just need Sal, you just need the one name?
Well, I remember when I was first appointed to the Senate, I was standing in the hallway speaking with someone, and someone came up and said Senator, and I was looking around to see who was walking up.
Oh, I love it. That's so fun. Well, you did begin as a senator,
yes,
I recall, and then there was one individual who stepped down
Mm-hmm.
from this representative position. So you fulfilled your obligation for another 9 months as a senator, and then you stepped into this role, what, 6 terms ago?
7.
7 terms ago.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's
Amazing.
been, when I finish this out, it'll be 14 years.
Well, congratulations. And thank you for your service.
Well, I have a little over 7 on the Medford City Council. I have a year in the Senate and 14 in the House, so I'll have about a cumulative of 22 years of public service.
22 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, can you share with us maybe your top 2 highlights of those 22 years?
Well, I think one of the highlights that I've been able to accomplish, other than, you know, all the bills and things and bringing money, I brought probably $175 million to the area.
Oh my goodness.
Through gas, you know, receipts and so on and so forth. The expressway, the Phoenix interchange, things of that nature. Worked with Peter Buckley and I, and we worked well together.
I love how you work in a bipartisan manner as well.
Well,
I think people really appreciate that about you.
That's what you have to do. In fact, Peter and I helped Peter get his first bill through.
Wow.
That was pretty cool.
Well, how wonderful. He'll see this probably since it's in this town here.
But I think the biggest accomplishment I have, and I'll tell you the biggest failure as well. The biggest accomplishment, in my opinion, is the National Sportsmen's Caucus for state legislatures. When I first arrived in the House, we had 3 members. Representative Alan Browns from the coast, and Wayne Krieger, Representative Krieger from the coast.
Just 3 of you?
Just 3 of us, and
in
myself.
The Legislative Sportsman Caucus?
And then the Legislative Sportsman Caucus. And Alan Brown wasn't active, and neither was Krieger.
Oh my goodness. So, well, you've taken that and driven that into now over a 40-member?
Yeah, 42 members out of 90 are now involved in the Sportsman's Caucus. And what it is, it's state legislators that are willing to work and preserve hunting and fishing and trapping and outdoor activities, habitat, wildlife habitat, things of this nature.
With the legal licenses.
Yes, it's kind of like the Roosevelt conservationists is what we consider ourselves. Because we hunt, we fish, but we also have a very acute sense of what needs to be done in order to preserve the herds, in order to preserve the fisheries, and so on and so forth. We're pretty much into water. We're pretty much into how it affects salmon and steelhead, and then we're also into what effects predators having on elk herds and deer herds and things of this nature. So we're pretty attuned to what's going on.
Well, you're on top of it.
Well,
coming from the wood industry as well.
We have 48 states out of 50 that are members of this, and almost 3,000 state legislators.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good arm to have.
Fantastic. Well, you can't retire now. You realize you're too
well, actually,
beloved
I will.
to retire now. Well, coming from a wood products industry as a kid out of SOU, you went right here to Southern Oregon University when it was called something else.
SOC. Southern Oregon College.
Right, Southern Oregon College.
Back in the early 70s.
And then as a realtor, you're very well versed on riparian rights, so you're the guy for the Sportsman Caucus.
Well, land use, of course, being a realtor, you learn that, you know, costs you to go to school kind of deal, and you learn the hard way. But you do learn a little bit about land use in the state of Oregon, but once you get into the state level, then it's a little different because it's more of a high altitude type approach to things, because you can't really get involved with the, and you can't micromanage the departments. The only thing you can do as a legislator is to have some impact on their budget.
So not the minutia of it,
right.
but you really help out
Right.
with the budget. And
An
financing.
example of that right now is we're facing about a $93 million, $96 million deferred maintenance in ODF&W in just their hatcheries alone.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
$100 million.
Almost $100 million. And so, of course, my first question is, why? Why do we have deferred maintenance in our system?
They needed it for something else, right?
Well,
robbing one.
That's right.
coffer
They're
to-
robbing that forever. They've been robbing that fund and taking the money elsewhere. And the other thing that I think needs to be done with ODF&W is they need to have a way, instead of just the sportsmen and men and women and the people that hunt and fish and the people that trap, they need to have some way where everyone in the state of Oregon pays for the wildlife, because we all own it.
That's
And,
a great idea.
When we have hearings, you get people from Portland that have never bought a license, or Corvallis or Eugene or wherever they're from. They come in and they want to tell you how to run it. Well, okay, let's buy into it then. So we have to devise, and we're working on that for this next February, some sort of a way,
Great.
a vehicle in order to have people that never hunt and fish, because since they own the wildlife as much as the people that do, they need to pay as much as anyone else.
I agree. It's amazing how people who aren't participating in something want to tell you how to run it.
It sounds like the government, doesn't it?
Well, my dad's name was Benjamin Franklin Ivy III.
There you go.
And he used to say, Britt, you can complain or you can contribute
Right.
to the United States of America. Right. And if you choose to complain, then you should leave the United States of America. You were raised to contribute. Now, sure, it's a democracy. Sure, people can voice their opinions. I'm not talking about free speech. But if you're going to complain about something, you might as well get in and help contribute to the solution a little bit.
Well, that's actually why I ran for city council. I was complaining, and someone told me to quit complaining and run for office. So I said, by golly, I'll show you I will. And I did, and I won.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I know you're beloved in the community, and we are going to go to a couple clips before we run out of time. I have so much to speak with you about. I'd like to show the audience the building, the beautiful state capitol building with the gold man, as I refer to him, on the top. Do you guys have a
Pioneer.
special name for him at
He's
work?
he's our gold pioneer. And by the way, you're
Gold
just
pioneer.
about 6 foot tall for his boots.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Neat,
It's just
Neat.
about head high,
neat.
top of his boot.
Okay. I think we had a couple other slides we can go to at some point while we gear up for clip number 1. So what do we have here? This is the actual room where you legislate.
That's the House chamber.
That's the floor.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
No, that's the Senate floor, because you see, that's when the news arrived that we were a state. And it took 33 days for them to ride a horse from Washington, D.C. to Oregon to let us know that we were a state.
33 days.
33 days.
Oh, wow.
That's why. That's March 17th, and we were actually February 14th was the day that we were admitted to the Union, but it took those 33 days.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Okay, well, if someone would let me know too how many minutes we have left, I may adjust the clips, just as we are so lucky to have so much to speak about today. The second clip we are going to go to after we see the 5-on-5 clip is about sanctuary cities. So I'm very excited to talk to you about the Sanctuary City IP 22, which you are the co-author of that measure, evidently. And we're not just a sanctuary city area, the whole state. We have so many counties that are sanctuary counties. Oregon is actually a sanctuary state at this point. So let's go ahead and roll to clip number 1 with an interview with Sal on 5.
Welcome to our 5-on-5. We're pleased to welcome back Republican Oregon State Rep. Sal Esquivel. Sal, good to see you. How are
Good
you?
to see you. How are you?
So you're in the middle of another re-election. How's everything going so far?
Going very well. Polling looks good.
Okay, and I know you're familiar with your Democratic opponent, former Talent Police Chief Mike Moran. What separates you from him?
Well, the fact that one is that I have a little more experience with the political process. Two, Mike is been on the part of the government payroll for 30-some years, so he has a different perspective than I do. And I have one of the outside of the business perspective looking into it and seeing what's what with the government itself, because the government is not the answer to everything. The government is part of the answer, but it certainly isn't, in a lot of cases, the right answer.
What are you most proud of in your time in the legislature?
Well, I think the most pride I had was getting monies for the bypass, our construction project out here on the Medco Hall Road. Mm-hmm. At first, they were only going to give us $50 million, providing that I gave support, and I said I would not give support unless it were $100 million, and we ended up with $100 million. So that was a good vote.
Okay.
The other thing is when I brought $1 million for the Holly Theater, when we brought monies for the RCC SOU building, the Tui Chubb in Klamath, in Diamond Lake, those kinds of issues. So.
Okay. What's been your biggest disappointment?
The biggest disappointment, I think, is the fact that we have been in the minority almost the whole time. And, this last time it was so egregious that decisions were being made in back rooms, and we weren't even part of the discussion. And I think that's wrong. And I think we need to have someone that would be the Speaker of the House that would take information and take opinions from the minority party. The minority party also needs to put people on committees, whereas they don't do that now. The Speaker does all that. And I think the minority party needs to assign to their own committees as well. And I don't think any bill should go to the Speaker with anyone's name on it. I think it should be blacked out, and that way the bill stands on its merit instead of who submitted the bill.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break.
Sure.
Much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to hear with Republican Oregon State Representative Sal Esquivel. Sal, what do you anticipate being the biggest issue ahead of the legislature?
Well, I think the PERS issue is going to be a biggie. Obamacare is going to be a $300+ million deficit, so we're faced with a $1 to $1.2 billion deficit before we walk in the door. That's going to be the biggest issue. The sad part about it is Dennis Richardson told them 6 years ago, the party in charge, we're going to have a deficit here, so you better save for it. But unfortunately, we didn't save nearly enough money, if any at all, and we maxed the credit card. So,
what's your stance on Measure 97?
I'm against Measure 97. Okay. I think no matter how you skin it, the corporations don't pay taxes, the people pay taxes. It's going to cost every household in the state of Oregon $600 a year in order to have Measure 97. It's not the answer. The answer is to find out, one, what we can do with PERS, and I'd like to see all litigation that goes to the Supreme Court be transferred to a different Supreme Court in a different state, because our Supreme Court is under PERS. So therefore, they should recuse themselves for a conflict of interest, but they never do that. So I'd like to see that moved out and given to someone else that could arbitrarily look at it.
Now, if 97 fails, the state's going to have to make some significant cuts. If you're reelected, where would you look to make those savings?
See, I think that's a myth as well. If you look back from 1945 forward, the state of Oregon has always increased in money, except for one biennium. That was 1983, I believe, when Vic Attia was the governor. It went down. But it's the only time since 1945 that it's gone down. What they're talking about cuts, when people talk about cuts in bureaucracy, what they're saying is, well, we want 12%, but you only gave us 6%, so therefore you cut us 6%. Well, no. You have a 6% increase, so you did increase. But they say in order to maintain, quote, the service level.
Okay. So I saw a local paper's editorial. They mentioned that they didn't feel you would climb the legislative ladder, if you will, into a leadership role. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, a leadership role, I will not be involved in a leadership role, and I made no bones about that when I first walked in the door. And I'll tell you why, because leadership has to, a lot of times, I would say, give up their principles in order to compromise, and I don't feel that that's me. The second thing is that we've never had a chairmanship because we've never been in charge. And as long as we're not in charge, the Democrats will be the ones that get the chair, and the Republicans will be the ones that sit in the corner, because we're in the minority. You know, that will change, though. In fact, I think this year, I'm predicting we're going to pick up 3 additional seats. So it'll be substantially closer. It's going to be an interesting biennium.
It's going to be an interesting week as well. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate
Take
it.
care.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Good job in that interview. Craig Smolin does a great job as well.
Good guy.
Lot to talk about in that clip, from PERS to somebody that you spoke about, Dennis Richardson, who was not elected at that time, but is now our Secretary of State.
Right. We're very proud of Dennis.
We are very proud of Dennis. So before we switch to him, do you just have a few comments on PERS? I know that's a little sad for you. There hasn't been more movement.
Well, there's been virtually no movement. We did some things in the past, but then it went to the Supreme Court and they overruled it. So anyway, it is what it is, I guess. And like I repeat, I'd like to see someone other than our Supreme Court make decisions on PERS because it's a conflict of interest. But
Yes.
that's the way the system is. PERS liability went up, well, just recently. We were at about 21.8 billion, and my understanding is that we're approaching 50 billion. So
Compounding.
continues to climb, and since I've been in that building, we've done virtually nothing to stop the growth of PERS, nor have we done anything innovative to stop the growth of that money, because, you know, if we don't, the state of Oregon is going to be in some desperate trouble in the next 10 years. And, you know, I've said this for 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, however long I've been in office, but it falls on deaf ears.
Wow. Well, that sounds a little bit like the deficit of our nation at the moment, I guess, in miniature. So regarding Dennis Richardson, who we are very proud of, I understand we spoke earlier in the show about that fund that has been rated almost for $100 million over time. I know that's happening with road funds across the country. But Dennis has put something in place. I know his audits are being very successful. Things kind of get whipped into shape. What's your experience around what's called the Sunshine Committee?
Well, Dennis wants to put sunlight on all these departments. And it's amazing, and I agree with him 100%, because it's amazing how sunlight cures problems. If people know about it, then they get cured.
Shed a little light on it.
Example, you know, the Department of Energy's just been a wreck.
Okay.
You know, they've misused money, they've appropriated money, given it out, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And now we just come to light on the Oregon Health Authority that they were actually plotting to make people look bad in order to get them off of the system. So,
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and Lynn Saxon lost her job over it. So,
Oh my goodness.
so, you know, when you've got people that are running unchecked, it comes right back to the way the system's set up. The person involved or in charge of that is the governor. And so far, our governor hasn't shown much leadership whatsoever, because Dennis keeps finding these things and they keep popping up. And she reminds me of the little boy with the dike. You know, the little Dutch boy with the dike. He's got 10 fingers, but there's 11 holes in the dike.
No.
You know, so the hits just keep on coming for her, and she needs to start grabbing a hold of that system up there and start getting her people more involved and have better communication. I don't know how you would ever manage DHS, Department of Human Services. It's so big. So there's a lot of things that are challenges.
That's very interesting information. Thank you so much, Sal. It must be a fascinating time to be there.
It's fascinating. All right.
Well, we are going to switch to another topic here in a moment. Before we go to clip 2, why don't you just set up clip 2 a little bit for our audience regarding the sanctuary cities and the bill or the measure that you co-authored.
Well, I co-authored Measure 88 4 years ago. And what that was, it overrode the legislature because the legislature had voted on a party line basis to allow people with a legal status, legal presence, to have driver's permits. And I thought the people of the state of Oregon should weigh in on that since they'd be driving with these people.
Good idea.
And it went down to it passed to override the legislature 2-1.
Wow, congratulations.
It passed in every county except Multnomah, and it was very close in Multnomah. So
That's the most densely populated county,
correct,
isn't it?
correct.
Right. Okay.
So having said that, I mean, it passed in counties like 70 to 30, 80 to 20, things of this nature. But having said that, then now what we find out, we have a sanctuary state, and of course our governor is standing up trying to tell Trump that she's against him and blah, 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 and she's going to show him. Well, the only thing that's going to do is probably cost us money, because the federal government can, in fact, cut off certain funds to the state of Oregon.
Oh,
So
yes.
anyway, I think the people of the state of Oregon should weigh in on it and decide whether they want to have a sanctuary state or not.
I think that's a great idea, especially if it's going to cost us so much money just to have a couple attitudes going at one another.
Well, a legal presence in the state of Oregon, according to FAIR, costs us $1.2 billion per year.
Really?
So that's
1.2 billion.
$2.4 billion per biennium.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be great to have that for education?
Oh, yes. And you've already been responsible for an extra, how much to the education? Did I
Well,
read it was
not-
$1 billion?
No, it wasn't the education. It was more to the highway systems here in Southern Oregon.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
it's about $160 million I brought to the area, helped bring to the area.
And the Phoenix interchange.
Peter Buckley and I, yeah, we
Okay,
worked
right.
well together. But the system itself needs to, there has to be a different way that we can monitor, and we need to look into these departments. And Dennis is doing a great job. So I believe in the sunshine theory. I always have. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Fantastic.
But I think it's a great step that we have someone in there that isn't a party politician.
Well, I agree. And I know we love to have people in this country that love our country, that want to speak our language and contribute and be here, and we love that.
Well,
So-
but there's a difference here too. I believe, and I hold my hand open to anyone. And by the way, the far left has said that I'm a racist. Well,
Oh my goodness.
you know, I'm half Mexican, so it really doesn't float well. But anyway, I don't mind
They
having
have a history
someone
of not
here.
doing their homework.
Someone here that's here legally, fine. But if you're coming to America, come to America to be an American. My papa came here and he learned how to speak English. He learned how to write English. He learned how to read. He learned history and he learned civics. It took him 14 years to become a citizen, but by golly, he was a very good citizen.
Fantastic.
And he was proud American.
Well, he'd
That's
be
what
proud
we
of
want.
you.
We want people here that want to become a part of America instead of taking advantage of the economic system and skirting into the shadows all the time. I think I could do that very easily if I were king for a day. I would initiate e-verification nationwide, and if you were caught not using e-verification for your existing employees and your future employees, then I would fine you $1,000 a head the first time. Second time it'd be $5,000 a head, and the third time I'd lift your business license in that state for a year.
Well, actions speak louder than words,
You know.
in all capacities. So that would actually get some people's attention.
Well, people, if they couldn't work, would go home.
Right.
You wouldn't have to deport anyone.
Well, you've definitely thought that through.
Well, like this sad case in Portland where the man was deported 20 times and turned around, they let him go, and they wouldn't let ICE know that they had him on hold. And he went down and he raped a 65-year-old, stole her vehicle, and then when they found him, he was assaulting another lady,
Oh my goodness gracious.
you know.
Whew, well, I could have gone through the day without hearing that, but that's okay.
Yeah, that was big news. In fact, we're nationwide.
Oh my
They're
goodness.
kind of chuckling at us nationwide, like, what are you people doing?
Wow, that's tragic. Well,
It is tragic.
unfortunately, that's happened a lot more than the media has reported. So that's very interesting. I'm not sure if we have time for the whole clip, but let's hear a minute of it. Okay, so we're going to skip the clip because we just basically spoke about everything that's in the clip. And just kind of a wrap up with, I just want to let our audience know your service has been commendable and noteworthy, and you have an amazing wife, Jan Esquivel, an amazing family. You grew up here in Medford. You've served here in Medford your whole life. Like you said, your dad came here. You have kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids here. So
Yes, we do.
we just thank you so much for your service. Currently, you're on the Joint Committee on Ways and Means Subcommittee on Natural
Yeah, now
Resources.
that's something that's a joke.
Well,
and
maybe will you come back for a second show?
I would if you'd like.
I'd love it.
I mean, it's an absolute
I would
joke.
love it. Well, you're also on the House Committee on Ag and Natural
Ag
Resources.
and natural resource,
right?
yeah, that's policy.
And then veterans. You know, we
Veterans
could do
and
a whole
emergency
show
service.
on what
Well,
you've done for veterans.
We did a lot for veterans. I've been on veterans about 12 years, I think, out of the 14.
And thank you for your service in Vietnam, by
Thank
the
you.
way.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I think I'm getting the flag here.
Getting
It's
the
time
high
to,
sign?
to wrap up. So once again, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with today, Sal?
Well, no, except that, you know, if you send people to Salem or send them to Washington, D.C., make sure you send people that'll go up there and do their job and don't worry about keeping it.
I like it. All right. Thank you so much for
You're
doing
welcome.
your job, and we just appreciate you so much. Oregon's better because of you, Sal. Thank you.
I hope so.
All right. Thanks for coming on Passion. Thanks for joining us today on Passion. We look forward to seeing you again with another exciting episode. Bye-bye.